What's this bit? You watching me shave now?
Well, sure, so I'll know how, of course. It would be 5 years before I have to. Maybe only 4.
You a little stumbling?
Well, you have to anticipate, don't you?
Sure, I think you can anticipate as much as you want to. You take a tip from an old hand. Don't be in such a hurry to go. Well, you can never go back. And when you're a man, be a man. You know what I mean?
Uncle Matt's gonna marry Pamela, isn't he?
That's what they told me.
Does he really go for that love stuff?
You just wait 5 years. Maybe even 4.
I turn the love stuff off on television.
Along with the commercials, huh?
No, I like the commercials, but you can have all that love stuff. Let's talk about the X-15.
You usually don't.
Said in the papers that number 3 bird would never fly again. I bet the North Americans are working on it right now.
Where do you hear all this?
Well, I'll tell you. Mom has some kind of a deal with you, I know. Women. She's actually afraid of some of the flying you do. So she makes you tell everything before you do it. That way she says she won't be frightened. So when you tell her, I listen. But believe me, Dad, I don't take notes. And I don't put anything down on paper.
Yeah, well, you're under arrest anyhow. Mikey, I'm gonna straighten you out and say, I don't want you to ever forget it. You know, your mother is a fine, solid woman. So when you say weird like that, don't ever mean your mother. Okay?
A modern day remake of Matthew Vaughn's Lay a Kick, a Coen Brothers end up with Timothy Chalamet. A Citizen Kane prequel, a Midnight Cowboy sequel, Alvin and the Chipmunks deserving of the squeak. There's so many new ways to revisit sideways, but a graphic novel is how we choose to update. But we still hold fast, you can't change the past on the Ruined Childhoods podcast.
In 2003, CBC Television debuted a new children's show called The X. Hosted by Sally Gifford and Anthony McLean, The X consisted of sketches, interviews, and remote spots filled with fun for kids. There were even fun celebrity cameos from the likes of Lindsay Lohan, Gwyneth Paltrow, and Claire Danes. Beginning her career at age 13 on the Dudley Moore sitcom pilot Dudley, Claire Danes later rose to fame as teenager Angela Chase in the 90s teen drama hit My So-Called Life. Danes also starred opposite Oscar winners Leonardo DiCaprio in Baz Luhrmann's Romeo and Juliet, Holly Hunter in Home for the Holidays, and Kieran Culkin in Igby Goes Down. In 2009, Danes married actor Hugh Dancy, but before meeting him, she was in other high-profile romances, a controversial dalliance with Billy Crudup, and a much less dramatic relationship with Aussie rocker Ben Lee. Now married to actress and author Ione Skye, Ben Lee rose to fame as a teenage musician with his band Noise Addict when he was only 14, catching the attention of Sonic Youth's Thurston Moore and Beastie Boy Mike D. At age 16, Lee began to release popular solo albums like Grandpa Wood and Something to Remember Me By, leading to his song How to Survive a Broken Heart's inclusion on the soundtrack for the 1998 film There's Something About Mary, alongside tunes from Jonathan Richman, the Lemonheads, and Portland, Oregon alt-rock favorites, the Dandy Warhols. Directed by Peter and Bobby Farrelly, There's Something About Mary dazzled comedy audiences with its unique brand of slapstick and gross-out comedy, specifically a scene in which Cameron Diaz sports a particularly shocking hairdo. The movie was released on July 15, 1998, and placed 4th in the box office behind past Ruined Childhoods movies Armageddon, The Mask of Zorro, as well as the last film in a popular action movie franchise, Lethal Weapon 4. Starring Danny Glover, Joe Pesci, Chris Rock, Jet Li, Rene Russo, and literally nobody else, Lethal Weapon 4 ended up being the 10th highest grossing film of 1998 and one of the final films by its iconic director, Richard Donner, whose feature film career began with this week's episode. Greetings, Starfighters. This is Ruined Childhoods. I'm John, and as always, joined by my big brother Dan. And on this episode, we're talking about the government-funded propagandish drama X-15, the story of the Air Force pilots testing an experimental rocket ship, the women who love them, and the kids who would rather be at home watching children's television. Dan, if you had a chance to leave Earth's atmosphere, would you do it?
Oh, I don't know. Probably not. Probably not. It's not appealing to me. I mean, I'm not.
Space has never been something of interest to you, despite the fact that there's a 2001 A Space Odyssey poster behind you.
Oh, no, I'm not saying. Yeah, you saw what happened to them.
That's true.
Like, why would I follow? There's
very true.
Yeah, I mean, like, it would be like if I had an Apollo 13 poster behind me. Like, yes, I don't think I would handle that situation well.
I'm
no Bill Paxton.
Right. Yeah. You are no Bill Paxton, Dan. I'm sorry to say it.
No, I'm not. And rest his soul. He was awesome. But John, would you leave the Earth's atmosphere?
This situation would have to be very specific. I would not go up in a SpaceX rocket.
No.
I would not go in a Jeff Bezos rocket. I would definitely consider a NASA program under the right circumstances if they were just like, okay, we've chosen you to be the first podcaster to record a podcast in outer space. And I'd be like, all right, let's do this. Why not? Because either way, it's going to goose the numbers for Ruined Childhoods.
Yeah, no, I mean, well, when you frame it like that. Also, I love how your decision to do it is like morally guided. I'm more just like, I'm afraid of the experience and flying at that speed and that altitude and all of the, like, I don't think I could handle it. And you're like, I need to feel okay about where this rocket is. And by the way, I credit that. That's absolute. Like, I'm sorry. I know it sounds like I'm making fun, but
no.
Not. I guess I'm more just analyzing what everyone just listened to. So yeah, but I agree. It would goose our numbers. It would be, we wouldn't need a special guest, but it would be cool.
Yeah.
I mean, you'd be the special guest. You'd be in space.
Well, okay.
Do you think NASA would goose my internet if just so that we could make this happen? Since you'd be the one.
So you are implying that we would be recording Ruined Childhoods in outer space.
You said it would goose the numbers for Ruined Childhoods.
Well, that's just because who's this clown who's going up to outer space? What are his podcasts? Oh, this one? I mean
that was what you said, so that was what I went with. That was the reality established. that was the world that was built. That we're
that's
playing
fair.
in here.
That's fair. That's fair. Okay.
Yeah. No. You can roll back.
I have a great idea, but I'll never do it. Not that show. Well, it wouldn't be an episode of Got It, which is like 30 seconds long, which is probably however long they could do it in space.
You committed to it on recording. It is. You could do. I mean, John.
Okay.
Wait. Hold on a second. What do you think? Like, you're only going to get to do like one. You probably like. Why not do all of them while you're up there?
That's fair. What else?
Who says you have to pick one? I mean, they're sending you up there. It's not going to cost. I mean, well, it probably would cost more actually to do more. But
I love the idea, by the way, of like, okay, I'm up in outer space. The world is listening, and we're doing like some sort of like live stream of the event.
And we're talking about who's like, Harry Crumb.
No. Well, first of all, yes, that would be really funny. But like, I get up there and I'm just like, okay, Dan, I'm signed on when you are. And then you're just like, hold on, I'm just waiting for the kid to get to sleep. And then it like, everybody's just kind of waiting for an update. And by the way,
the satellite is passing our airspace now. I can't read you another story. I need to. This is the exact moment that Frankie Sharp is going to be within reception.
Wow.
Frankie Sharp of Sharp Records.
Well, yeah, I mean, that's the only way that we're going to get signed to a major podcast network is if Frankie Sharp from Sharp Records hears us in his limo at that exact moment.
Absolutely.
Because he doesn't fly.
No.
That's the only way he travels.
Yep. Yeah. But speaking of flying.
Yeah, well, okay. So first of all, I'm really excited that we are just about halfway through our series where we're going from A to Z and then Z to A through our film's titles. We are on X. This is X-15. There are certainly other X movies that we could cover, but when we saw that there was a movie that, first of all, one of the only letter in it is the letter X, but also it's the first film directed by Richard Donner.
Yeah.
That's kind of cool.
Yeah.
And even though it's a bit of an outlier, I'd say that Richard Donner also is a bit of an outlier. When you look at his credits, you know, he had been directing long before this television and then
a lot of TV.
And then for a long time, even after this, he wasn't doing very many features and there wasn't really much that hit until the later 70s.
The Omen.
The Omen, 75?
The Omen was
76 maybe? 76?
76,
yeah.
Just because I think the remake, came out like 2006. Although that was also so they could release it on June 6th.
It was 666.
Yeah.
I remember the billboards.
Yeah. No. But yeah, so Richard Donner, a lot of TV. What was funny, I looked through his IMDb, not a single episode of Maverick, ironically.
Interesting.
As he would go on to direct the film. Yeah.
Well, I mean, he and
starring Jodie Foster, James Garner, and literally
nobody else.
Yeah,
well, that nobody else, and he seemed to have teamed up quite a bit, and I'm sure that there were good reasons for that we just don't know. But anyway, the guy worked.
Yeah. But I mean, hey, he's not in this, so.
Yeah. But, okay. So, of course, you have the Omen, Superman.
Yeah.
Kind of Superman 2.
The Richard Donner cut.
Yeah, the Richard Donner cut and whatever.
But hold on.
The Goonies.
But hold on, John. To focus on that for a moment. How many... So, okay. There, many a time has a movie started production with one director and another director steps in, whether the one director quits or is fired or whatnot. It is not infrequent, but and it's neither is it infrequent for that first director to shoot footage. Now, granted, Richard Donner got a lot farther with Superman 2 than just a few scenes, but how many directors have their director's cut released the way that it was its own DVD release?
Yeah.
Superman, not a bootleg. It was a bootleg. They were bootlegged at first, but then Warner Brothers sold it. That's my copy that I have. And
well, also to also say, not instead of the original cut, but the Donner cut.
The Donner cut. Yeah.
That before there was the Snyder cut, there was the Donner cut.
Right.
And that was unheard of. Absolutely unheard of.
Yeah. Yeah. Absolutely. And it was, I mean, it would be you can tell when you watch the Donner cut what is kind of the unmastered footage and what they added in, but it was so cool because Superman 2 is such a great movie. And also speaking of great people who have just been kind of on the brain lately, for sad reasons because of his passing, Gene Hackman. So Gene Hackman is Lex Luthor in the original, in Richard Donner's Superman, and then in Superman 2 and Superman 4: The Quest for Peace. where
Yes.
he does. I'm like, I thought about that movie, and that movie came out in the summer of 1987 when Jaws: The Revenge did, and I'm like, have Gene Hackman and Michael Caine ever compared the houses that those movies bought them? I'm sure Michael Caine's is bigger because
Yeah.
Canon wasn't producing Jaws: The Revenge.
Right. Yeah.
But I just that thought occurred to me as I was just kind of reflecting on the career of Gene Hackman, because when you think like, all right, like what's my favorite Gene Hackman performance, and then there's like it's like the spinning wheel of, well, like, or which one, like depends on the
Right.
day, the moment, and then you think about, when you start to think about, all right, what types of characters did he play? And it's like, oh, he did a lot of this. He did, and he did that too. And like inspiring coach, yeah, like 3 times.
Yeah.
You know, he works, you know, through his career, worked his way up to the presidency.
Yeah.
And by the way, freak in it, like both as a cabinet member and a president murders his mistress.
Right. No Way Out.
No Way Out and Absolute Power.
And Absolute Power.
Yeah. I mean, isn't he kind of like briefly inhabiting the White House in Superman 2 after they
Yeah,
take it over?
That feels familiar.
Yeah. But you know, he goes, he's the senator in the Birdcage, and
Right.
I feel like there's another one where he's a congressman, and then he's the former president who runs for mayor in Welcome to Mooseport.
Yeah.
I don't think he wins that. I'm not sure if he wins. I never saw it, but
I don't remember if I ever saw that one, but definitely worth a watch. I think just because of him.
And then you think about him, like the military stuff, Crimson Tide, Behind Enemy Lines, and then you think
The Program.
Wait, no, that was James Caan.
No, wait, not The Program. The Package is what I'm thinking.
Oh, The Package, yeah. The Package, Bat 21, I think Uncommon Valor. I that one I never saw, but so you've got those. How many times has he been kind of like a conniving Weasley, like in
the Royal Tenenbaums, Get Shorty, Under Suspicion, kind of.
I didn't watch that.
Right, that was one that I watched to test out for our Puerto Rico episode in season 2, and yeah, he's a wealthy guy who is, as the title may suggest, under suspicion for some very shocking deaths.
I feel like that one is maybe like closer to The Firm, where he's
right.
Yeah, where he's like kind of more of the mastermind, which also Heist. He's kind of
he's
mastermind.
The shady guy that's in some form of power.
Right. But also does like paranoid in Enemy of the State, and then like in Converse. He's so.
I love him in Enemy of the State in the Conversation.
But the Conversation, he's like so restrained and withdrawn, and then other movies, he's just so explosive and like Unforgiven. He is one of, like, you know, as many plays, you know, a lot of great villain characters, but Unforgiven, he's just like this man who just like operates with violence.
Yeah. The Quick and the Dead.
Yeah. But with Unforgiven, he gives you that one little like redeeming twist. He gives you that one moment, and I won't, you know, give it away, but it's towards the end where you're like, man, damned if I don't feel like a shred of sympathy for this guy in this moment. Quick and the Dead, I don't think you ever get that way, and he's just pure evil in Quick and the Dead.
Yeah,
and so much fun.
And then there's those fun ones like Young Frankenstein, Bonnie and Clyde.
Right. Yes, Bonnie and Clyde. You've got some of the ones from the 80s, like was it like Loose Cannons with Dan Aykroyd?
Oh, right. Yeah.
There were the ones, there were some of them that you were like, what did he need the money for?
Well, and I think that for an actor like him, I think that there's an element of it which is just like he loves to do it.
He might just
And
be having fun.
yeah, and in certain cases, we all, I think, as a society, have this impression of famous actors that they are, on yachts and private jets all the time, but like, a lot of actors are working actors and rely on the income, and I'm sure that at a certain point he was way more comfortable, but for a time, I'm sure he was just like, "Oh, I have an audition, great."
Yeah. Well,
Like
I mean,
that kind of a guy.
I mean, we've talked about, Pacino, who his circumstances were a little different. He got screwed out of his money. And
taken advantage of by a financial advisor.
But it's not like, you're in a hit movie or two or 5 or 8 or however many Gene Hackman was in. And I mean, like, the money goes places.
Yeah.
You're paying people. You have people who work for you.
Yeah.
So anyway, yeah, the point is, great actor. And Richard Donner, great director.
Richard Donner, great director. And honestly, when I was watching X-15, there were a lot of moments where I was just like, a talented director had their hands in this. Like, there are certain moments where you're just like, this isn't just anybody who's doing this shot, this kind of move right here. Like, this is somebody who's got a little something.
I definitely was like kind of trying to spot some of the, DNA of his future films. Mostly the Lethal Weapon movies. Those are the ones that I'm, especially the second and third one, I think I'm most familiar. I mean, and the first one, most familiar with those. And also, I mean, as you were saying before I interrupted before, he directed The Goonies.
Yeah.
And then Lethal Weapon 1, Lethal Weapon 2, 3, 4. Maverick, Conspiracy Theory, starring Julia Roberts, Patrick Stewart, and literally nobody else.
And nobody else.
The joke's not going to get old for me this episode.
I'm glad that one tickled you a little bit.
I don't anticipate needing it much more, but it's been fun.
So, Richard Donner, I feel, really gave us a glimpse of like, not necessarily what he was going to become, but just the fact that like, there's somebody that's got some chops that's behind the camera. Yeah. And because this is a movie that could otherwise, and most of the time does feel a little flat. And honestly, it's not a creative passion project. No. It is most certainly a form of U.S. military propaganda of just like, check out this cool new thing. I mean, originally it was going to be about a different, rocket, jet that, but then they were just like, no, how about this one? And it's, I mean, it's cool. They used the actual footage of the X-15 and some other Air Force footage that they kind of wove in. And I feel like they did a good job weaving it in. It didn't feel like it was shoehorned too much. Yeah. Some of it, yes, but not all of it.
Yeah. There was quite a bit where it felt kind of like an industrial film.
Well, especially when the narration comes in from James Stewart.
The James Stewart narration, but like the scene where it was the psychiatrist when he's talking to I think it's like Charles Bronson's wife or is it Mary Tyler Moore? It's Mary Tyler Moore, I think.
Mary Tyler Moore, Matt's gal. Yeah,
where he's like, where babies start up here, and it's like in a woman's brain.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah.
Well, do you want to synopsize and then we'll really dive in?
Yeah. Here we go. During the testing phase of a new NASA manned vessel, 3 Air Force pilots are tasked with testing its speed, safety, and reliability. But if you think that job is hard, imagine the lives of their loved ones, their wives, children, and girlfriends who have to stand by and wait as the men risk their lives testing the fastest aircraft on Earth and possibly even outer space.
Yeah.
Yeah, so and we've got David McLean as Matt Powell, Charles Bronson as Lee. We've got Ralph Tager as Major Ernest Wilde, and then Mary Tyler Moore, Patricia Owens, and I think those are the, and then of course James Stewart as the narrator. But those are going to be your familiar faces,
Right.
in this cast, if not names.
Yeah, I think, and honestly, the things that make this movie watchable are, okay, like we said, Richard Donner, and watching it as somebody from a 2025 perspective of being like, okay, I know Richard Donner's work and being able to look back at it, but also to be like, oh, hey, this is Mary Tyler Moore's first feature film.
Yeah.
And like, oh, look, it's baby Charles Bronson. And to look back at it in that way, it makes it more watchable because some of the parts are just real snoozers. When they're just like sitting around a conference table, I'm just like, okay, honk shoe, I'm sawing logs over here. Check, please.
Oh, yeah. Yeah. And it also, I think, takes a little bit of watching it, imagining what it was like to watch it at the time in a movie theater without, like, pre Top Gun, much less Top Gun Maverick.
Yeah. Well, I think that a movie like this, you definitely have to think about Top Gun, but
pre 2001 even.
Right. Well, yes, it's both an Air Force thing and also an outer space thing because it does leave the Earth's atmosphere. But I feel like because it's 1961, this is before the Apollo missions, all that kind of stuff. Like, we as an audience are so familiar with all of those, Apollo 13, as you mentioned before, especially being such a big one, and like all of these outer space movies, and whether they are based on reality or not, they are all in our brains watching this then, where that audience at the time, they're not primed for something that exists in that world as much.
And also to add to that list, The Right Stuff.
Well, The Right Stuff, absolutely, which is such an awesome movie. I love it.
Oh yeah, yeah, and I wouldn't be surprised if The Right Stuff kind of looked to X-15 for some for some guidance, for some inspiration.
Yeah.
But yeah, no, it is not the best movie in the world. It is very flat.
Well, yeah. Well, also with The Right Stuff, that's drawing on real people.
Yeah.
And this is a fictionalized account that is built around a real rocket that's being tested.
Right. Yeah, but it's kind of confusing, like, because the tone, it plays kind of like a documentary or a government propaganda film.
Yeah.
I mean, which it is, but also I guess it's supposed to be something more than that. But it does frequently
They're
play
trying.
like that. Yeah. And it looks like they're kind of looking to show, like, well, this is the life if you're the wife of a pilot. And
honestly, that was some of the more interesting stuff to me, was the way that the women were treated. And their position in all of this.
And the moments where they would be living, the fact that they were so close to the base and so close to where the danger was, and that, like, they'd hear the alarm going off.
Yeah.
And worry and run to the phone. So seeing...
Yeah, it's like, oh, no, that siren you don't have to worry about. It's the other one that you have to worry about.
Right. Yeah. So their reality of it was, interesting. And of course, it's the early 60s, and this screenplay was written in the late 50s. So
Right.
we're
Our sensibilities are very different now.
no, the gender roles are very much in place. It mean to a fault. It's the aforementioned baby stuff, and it also, there was a lot of that, like, kind of obvious foreshadowing. Like, you were watching the movie, and at a certain point, I don't know about you, but at a certain point I started narrowing down which one wasn't going to make it. And as
Right.
soon
Well,
as,
I mean, when they tell you that there's a siren that goes off when somebody's, toast.
Yeah.
It's just like, all right, one of them's going to be toast.
and I mean, you've got the shaving scene of, if you see the art,
the artwork for this one.
Yeah.
When I was putting that together, first I just had like, a publicity photo of just, Mary Tyler Moore and David McLean or whatever. And then I really wanted the Charles Bronson shaving, and fortunately I was able to find a shot of that. And because yes, there's this scene between the father and the son, and the wife is overhearing them and they don't realize it. And it's like, oh boy, he's done for.
And you could see the baby starting to gestate in her brain.
Yeah. And starting up there.
But yes, and as you said, and I mean, for what it's worth, spoiler alert, you're like, oh, Bronson ain't making it.
Yeah, and I think that also because, and they wouldn't have known at the time that Charles Bronson would go on to have such a, full career,
right?
That like, there is something about, like, for us who would be the star of the movie, having, such a big moment in it. Because I mean, certainly they were David McLean is the star of the movie. He's, Matt Powell. He's the X-15 guy. He's not one of the fighter pilots who's trailing alongside or whatever.
Yep.
And but to see Charles Bronson have this moment with his family, it's the telltale sign something's gonna happen.
Yep. And we know what we're gonna hear, the other alarm.
Yeah. But I feel like, considering the kind of movie that it should have been, it's better than it would have been if. Well, I think there were some talented people. If they weren't involved, it wouldn't have been as good.
No, absolutely not. And also, like, you have to remember, they're tasked with showing certain things in certain ways.
Yeah.
So there's a great article on SmithsonianMag.com that,
never heard of it.
Oh yeah. I think they're still around, the Smithsonian. But an article about X-15 and how it got it got good reviews when it came out, and it was considered to be very, very accurate because they got a lot of stuff from the military. And like you said, the military were the ones who said, they were like, you wrote your script about this, but this is what you really want to be showing people.
Yeah, the military, the government marketing department comes in and says, it's like, we're really pushing this one.
Yeah. So that's the story with that one.
Yeah. And Mary Tyler Moore has gone on record kind of writing off the movie as being crap, and but it's like,
job's a job.
Right. And it's for her first feature film. Not that that's what she was most known for, but even still, it's
what. Okay, yeah. So what else has she done? I'm kidding. Okay. But yeah, actually, it's fun. This article has like the script notes that NASA gave, or sorry, that was it the Air Force or NASA that they gave suggestions, and right, it was originally the X-2.
Yeah.
And it's script notes. They talk about how like different terminology, like it says page 70, scene 146, terminology used would probably be pull her up, not lift her off, since the airplane is already airborne.
Well, that's kind of cool.
Yeah.
Knowing that they were going for accuracy there. Did they have any notes about the shaving scene?
Oh yeah, they were like
He should be going against the grain.
I was gonna say with the grain, but I guess he was.
See, that's the thing. But that's the thing is that with NASA they have very specific rules about shaving.
Well, if you're shaving in zero gravity, there is no grain. In space, no one can hear you shave.
Okay. We'll go with that.
It's true.
I thought that the kid was really good. The kid who plays his son, he was a cute, toe-headed little,
he did this,
scamp.
little like I guess they couldn't get little Ronnie Howard, so
yeah.
Just in case you want to throw somebody else, what if like Ron Howard was inspired to make Apollo 13 because like he auditioned for this job and didn't get it? He's like, I'll show them. Yep. But yeah. Oh, let's see. Page 90, scene 202. Fuel is not measured in inches. Correct terminology is minimum fuel. So,
well, yeah, I appreciate that they had a hand in it in that way.
Check it out. There's some cool stuff on there. But yeah, also the script is not fantastic.
No.
Yeah, so I don't know, John. What more do we really say about X-15?
It's a really tough one to really like do a deep dive on because it doesn't go very deep.
No, the deepest dive that's taken is the one Bronson takes.
Ooh,
yikes!
Ouch.
Sorry.
Yeah. Anyway, I think that the movie itself, it was enjoyable to watch, but only from the perspective of like, hey, it's this person. Hey, it's that person. It's like, ooh, this weird little Dutch angle is very interesting. And that wouldn't be done by like, Joe Schmo guy who's just like, hey, direct this film, guy that's out there in the mailroom or whatever.
Oh, wait, I have just a couple of other lines that I wrote. Mm-hmm. So after Charles Bronson dies and his wife is crying and Matt says something about it, like that he would put his arms around her and let her cry, but it's too soon for that. And
oh my God.
And then there's the other scene where they're leaving like, let's go or the girls are going to burn the stakes.
Yes. Yeah, I remember that one.
Wonderful. Yeah.
Yeah, it's a challenge.
It's an artifact
to go through, but it's an artifact, and that's right. And it deserves to be watched if you really are somebody who wants to go in like a deep dive on like Richard Donner. I'm glad that I saw it. I never have to watch it again.
Nope.
And I honestly, it's like, even though the Jimmy Stewart stuff felt very dry and like a newsreel kind of a thing,
mm-hmm.
There were times where I was just like, I kind of wish I could hear a little bit more from Jimmy Stewart, Well, and also it's like his voice wasn't all Jimmy Stewart-y. No. It was very, I'm narrating a newsreel Jimmy Stewart.
Yes, yeah. I was military Jimmy Stewart.
Mary! There's like nothing like that.
The X-15 fighter jet. Flew at speeds unheretofore known to man.
It is kind of funny to think about like, oh, out there exists a Jimmy Stewart Charles Bronson movie. But like,
but not the one we want.
Well, yeah, but it's like that would be like a good trivia question of just like name a movie that features Jimmy Stewart and Charles Bronson. It's like that would be a tough one to pull.
Death Wish 4, It's a Wonderful Death.
Hey, talking about Canon Films.
Yeah.
They took control of the Death Wishes.
The franchise there. Yeah. Oh, no.
Yeah.
They kept Charles Bronson working for the
Charles
80s.
Bronson, Chuck Norris. Yeah, yep. Big time. They got into bed with those guys and kept them working.
Oh, yeah.
Well, before we ruin any childhoods, if you listeners want to chime in and let us know how you would resurrect this movie, we'd love to hear it. But Dan, let's say this is somebody's childhood favorite movie. How would you ruin it?
How would I ruin it for them? Turn it into a musical. No,
okay.
no. I was kidding until it came out of my mouth and I heard that. I think this is the type of thing that like VR would be really cool for, like experiencing just like having a program where you could experience what it was like to fly in different types of aircraft.
Yeah.
I think that would be really cool. Both for the civilians, but also pilots. It'd be really cool. I mean, you're not gonna like tie it in with the movie because, like, who's heard of this, really?
Oh, here's how you do it. Okay, so it's an immersive VR experience where two people go into it, and it has to be a man and a woman.
Oh,
and the man goes into the X-15 one, and they are hooked up to like a heart monitor, and when the heart monitor is noticing that they are experiencing a certain part of the X-15 flight, it is linked over to the woman's VR experience, which is all about ovulating. And when the heart rate hits a certain amount, a woman starts to ovulate. And
of course,
that's the X-15 experience.
And yes, of course, this is the reality we are living in. There are only only those two options.
I mean that's it. And just to be clear,
we're
speaking strictly satirical.
Yes.
That is in no way what we would want to see happen. But if we were if we were true to the X-15 movie, that's what it would be.
Yeah. It would just be like, the guy gets to like experience a really cool ride, and the woman just sits there and feels anxious and thinks about babies.
Yeah.
So that was just my thinking on it, like that. Maybe a theme park ride would be fun, but the VR experience kind of provides at least a similar thrill, and is safer and less expensive to construct and insure.
Right. I mean, I think it would make sense at one of the many like aviation museums to
definitely
have something like that.
Definitely. What would you do with this, with X-15?
Well, the more I thought about it, the more my ideas were reminding me of things that have been made since, because there is so much nostalgia for the especially later 60s space program. And there was that movie like Fly Me to the Moon with Scarlett Johansson and Channing Tatum, and it's like, oh, cutesy, quirky, and all that kind of stuff. And of course there's like
Hidden Figures,
First Man, about the Apollo 11 mission, and with Ryan Gosling. And I don't know, that feels so played out.
Yeah.
So there is something that I do like about going like just a little bit further into the past to the early 60s to like, this time when it's like, okay, we're like just able to get above the Earth's atmosphere, maybe, kind of. And thinking about this movie, so much of it is about the experience of the wives. And I mean, how to do this appropriately, I'm not positive, but the movies about the space program that have, I think, been the best have been the ones about those like stories that you didn't hear about so much. Hidden Figures being, one that comes to mind. And I'm not saying that what I'm going into is, a historical account of it, but thinking about how the women were approached by the Air Force in this, and kind of being told like, well, this is your job. And essentially it was like, you need to get pregnant and have babies because that's what these men will have to live for, essentially.
Yeah.
And I do like the idea of like, let's say the Mary Tyler Moore character being the more progressive woman entering this little mini society of these families that are so traditional, and being told, okay, we are relying on you to get all the women on board to get pregnant and, you know, be there for the men and serve this role for them. And I feel like there's an opportunity to have a story about somebody who's approached to do that and who maybe, I don't know, goes off course and in order to like stick it to the man, you know, faking pregnancies or doing something that is kind of saying to them like, screw you, you don't control our bodies.
It sounds like The Handmaid's Tale.
Yeah, it's a little Handmaid's Tale. Yeah, kind of like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know, but I don't know what it would be exactly, but that's something that really fascinated me about this movie is the way that the women were approached. And I mean, yeah, okay, it's cool. This is the first movie filmed in space and that's using the actual footage. I know. Yeah. But like, what was more interesting to me was the stuff that had less to do with the pilots.
Yeah.
And more to do with like the women being told how to be people. And, you know, I mean, of course we're watching it from a 2025 lens and, it was never an okay thing. And to realize just, you know, I guess just be reminded of how that was approached at that time.
And I guess that's kind of like almost the purpose. I know you're not saying like remake it, but the purpose of doing that is to kind of like right that misstep, then like to take some of these movies where you can and say like, all right, the original really didn't give you a fair or realistic representation.
Yeah.
We're going to right that wrong. So, and maybe just writing that wrong with a project just focused on them is the way to go.
Yeah. I mean, another thing that I was thinking of while I was watching X-15, just because, you know, when I'm watching a movie like this, I'm like, I need to activate my brain in order to pay attention to the movie. And so it's like, all right, well, I'm going to do the assignment while I'm watching the movie and think about, you know, what I would do. And a lot of the things that I thought about felt a lot like Wag the Dog, where because there is the space race and, you know, trying to advance the systems very rapidly, creating that phony narrative. But that also felt, you know, in my mind a lot like that movie Fly Me to the Moon, where the whole conceit is we don't know if the Apollo 11 mission to land on the moon is going to work. So we are going to fake it. And we are going to show this feed if the other one fails. And then, you know, that's all. I don't know if you watched it. It's not
well,
great.
I know the premise is like, it's not like we're just going to fake the moon landing, but we are prepared if we need to.
Yeah, we're going to do two of them. One of them is going to be in a studio and the other one's going to be on the moon.
Yeah.
And whichever one we show depends on how things go up there.
Who plays the young Stanley Kubrick that they bring in to direct it?
That's the thing, is that it isn't Stanley Kubrick, but there is a line that's just like, oh, we should have just got Kubrick. Like there's a nod to, you know, I know. And that's the whole movie is kind of like hinging on that vibe.
That's why I don't like watching movies now.
Just like any movie?
Not just any movie, but no, it just drives me crazy. Yeah,
like in The Substance when Margaret Qualley crawls out of Demi Moore and they just look at each other and go, awkward.
Yeah, that was the weirdest thing about that movie.
The weirdest thing about that movie. Well, if you all have ideas for how you would want to revisit X-15 or any other movie that we have talked about on the show, email us ruinchildhoodspod@gmail.com. Check out ruinchildhoodspod.com for all sorts of fun stuff. Please rate and review the show on iTunes or Apple Music. iTunes doesn't exist anymore. Apple Podcasts.
Oh, yeah.
That's what I'm talking about. It's been a long day. Apple Podcasts, those ratings and those reviews help people discover the show, and it's really important. And leaving comments, which some of you have been doing on Spotify, has been really great too. Yay. They have their own way of rating. And people have been commenting a lot on our YouTube videos. All of these shows are available as video podcasts on our YouTube channel. You can see all of that on ruinedchildhoodspod.com, and Spotify also has the video episodes. And yes, as we mentioned before, we are going A to Z and then Z to A here for our third season. And Dan, we're doing, what is it going to be? Episode 280 is our first Y episode. We'll be doing another Y episode in 3 more.
Well, Yo-Yo. It's too bad Yo-Yo isn't the name of a movie.
Ooh, well, what are we going to be doing for our first Y movie?
Yo-Yo, we're doing Yentl.
Yeah, boy.
From 1983, directed by and starring Barbara Streisand. Co-starring Amy Irving and Mandy Patinkin. And a movie I'm looking forward to talking about.
I'm psyched, man. I'm psyched.
Yeah,
it's gonna be wild.
Yentl, who knew? Is this your first time seeing Yentl?
Well, yes, and we'll talk more about it on our. Do we just do 2 episodes in a row, in 2-in-1 episodes, and just go right into Yentl?
We cannot.
I've got an intro written up.
Oh. I am not ready. I am not fully prepared to talk about Yentl right now, but I will be when the time comes.
Well, I am psyched, and Dan, as you are flying in an X-15 and surviving, hopefully, unlike Charles Bronson, spoiler alert, I wish you a good journey.
Good journey.